Okay, we are live, baby, but we're going to let it breathe just for a moment while we bring on our Facebookers and our Instagrammers. Get the whole MHH tribe in one tent. You know how we do it here. That's a priority. And we are good. Welcome in, everybody. It is the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me, my fellow football priest, who you know, who you love, Zack Kelberman. Zack, first things first, brother. The Broncos, couple of roster transactions today after making the roster as one of three undrafted rookies this year. Levelle Bailey, the linebacker, was waived to make room for a veteran linebacker. You had the story for us. Break it down in your reaction.
I think he's a veteran by title only. He has like 17 career solo tackles. He's mostly a special teamer. And that's why I think the Broncos ended up making this surprise waiving of Levelle Bailey, who I think earned it a spot on the 53 with that big pick six he had. He seems to be good in pass coverage. Sean Payton took a liking to him and kind of recruited him as a college free agent. So I was taken aback by this move. I can only imagine that Mike Westhoff and Ben Kotwika played a part, and Christian Welch is going to play more of a role on special teams than Bailey would have.
And what do we know about this cat, Christian Welch?
He spent the first 3 years of his career. I got to pull it up. I think it was with Baltimore. I just wrote the story,
Baltimore.
Yeah,
Baltimore.
And then the last year with Green Bay, 13 solo tackles. He's appeared in 57 games since 2020, undrafted free agent. So again, mostly a core special teamer.
Right. 6'3", 240 pounds. It's interesting, it'll be, hopefully we'll get a chance at some point to hear from Coach Payton at least on why the Broncos prioritized him over Levelle Bailey. But I know, and with the practice squad, by the way, being mostly set, I mean, it's always in flux. Once the season gets rolling, the practice squad is always in flux. The last 2 or 3 spots on the 53-man roster is always in flux. But it will be interesting to see if somebody on the PS, Zach, gets handed their walking papers to re-sign Levelle Bailey.
They have a spot open for him.
Oh, they do?
Mm-hmm.
Why was I thinking it was at 16?
They had an exemption for the Australian.
For Yasmin.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
He can carry an extra player. And assuming he clears waivers, Chad, he might get picked up.
I forgot about that because Thomas Yasmin, or Yasmin, however you want to pronounce it, I'm not sure the pronunciation on that, but undrafted rookie out of Utah, but he technically qualifies under the what is it?
International Player Pathway Program.
Yeah. So that's cool. All right. Sam Bam, what's up, brother? So good to see you.
Thank you
for the super chat, bro. Says, evening, guys. Loving the Broncos 53-man roster. No surprises for me in terms of roster cuts. I wish Tim Patrick the best, as I feel it was understandable to move off of him. Anyhow, 10 days until the first game. Go Broncos. Yeah, Zach, we haven't really had our chance to react on the podcast to the roster cuts. What were some of your takeaways from what you saw in reactions?
I was a little surprised by the Tim Patrick release. I'm not gonna lie. Not so much the Samaje Perine release, because we've been talking about that for months now. But I thought Tim Patrick did enough, came back from the injury, but apparently not. They want to go younger, more explosive with Devon Bailey. I get it. The only other real surprise that I can think of, Chad, and you said it to me in our DMs, was Jonas Griffith. And again, this seems like the Broncos want to get younger and cheaper and hopefully better at that position. But keeping Bailey instead of Jonas, I get. But then turning around and releasing Bailey for Christian Welch, I really don't understand.
Yeah, it's it's a little bit weird. Pardon me, frog in my throat. Let me just get this real fast. What about Michael Burton, though, Zach? Because that kind of surprised me. Obviously, it worked out okay because they were able to re-sign the fullback, Michael Burton, to the practice squad. But it was a little bit of a risk because you had to expose him to the waiver wire, obviously. And he is perceived around the NFL as one of the better fullbacks. And if memory serves, he did receive even enough Pro Bowl votes last year to make the alternate list. So didn't make the Pro Bowl, but enough to garner alternate, I won't call it honors, but recognition. Let's call it that. But that surprised me a little bit. But hey, no harm, no foul.
Yeah, another one of Sean Payton's guys, which that was the surprising part to me. Same with Lil Jordan Humphrey. And the Broncos initially got rid of Tim Patrick, and then Brandon Johnson, Michael Bandy, Jalen Virgil, David Sills, because they wanted to keep Lil Jordan Humphrey on the 53. But what do? They cut him at the last minute and bring him back on the practice squad. I assume that Lil Jordan Humphrey will be called up to the 53. And in that case, Chad, I would have preferred either TP on the 53 or Brandon Johnson, who landed in Pittsburgh, where he'll be catching passes from Russell Wilson.
Hey, and he had a little bit of a good thing with Russ,
Yep.
Brandon Johnson. He flourished.
He's a good receiver.
Somewhat. I mean, for his sample size, he produced quite well for the Broncos, but there were some other emergencies over the summer that kind of rendered him obsolete. Let's grab David here, and then I want to actually go through the roster real fast for those who aren't reading the blogs every day or might have missed something. Papa Bear, what's up, bro? Much love and respect. I don't know what we do without you and your hashtag game, keeping it strong, bro. It says, good evening, Broncos country. Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. He's still throwing down the 12-5. Plus, God bless the USA in an election year. We certainly need it. Hashtag Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life, Knicks for 6. Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate you, David. And we're both, all three of us in the room right now are bummed that we won't get to see you in a couple of weeks, but there will be other meet and greet, so we'll look forward to that. Eric, thanks, brother. Great to see you. Did your jersey arrive today? He says, I can't watch live tonight, but I'll listen later. I guess I won't be able to hear from you if it arrived today. Phil, down in Tucson, much love and respect. Thank you, brother. Some star love on Facebook saying, good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. I'm glad Samaje Perine got a job, but not with the Chiefs. Hashtag Buckham, MHH for life, Broncos for life. Yes, indeed, Zach. He lands on his feet with a division rival, like the worst division rival.
Yeah, Phil's kind of echoing what Sean Payton said, that I wish him well. I really do hope he does well, but not against us. And that's just like when any other former Broncos player ends up facing Denver. Samaje Perine's a good back for what he offers to an offense. And hopefully he does well and chases a ring. I hope he doesn't get one ultimately, but we'll see what happens.
I like this comment from Scott. Nothing, the perception of, hey, why'd you let Tim Patrick go? We want to go younger at wide receiver. Nothing says we're going younger like a 27-year-old rookie wideout, which surprisingly, that's how old Devon Vele is. So interesting stuff. But hey, listen, Phil, we love you, big dog. The Ronk jumping in to say, good evening, Chad and Zach on the MHH podcast. Bo time. Bo leave. God bless Bo Nix and go Broncos. Zach, I'll put my roster thing. We'll put a pin in that for a second. This is a good opportunity to segue. You had an article today for us. ESPN releases its 2024 stat projections for Bo Nix. Run through those projections.
Yeah, so I don't know that you guys are going to agree with what ESPN forecasted for Bo Nix, and I'll just get right to it. So this was according to their player page for Bo after he was named the starter. They have him completing 62.3% of his passes for 3,155 yards, 17 touchdowns through the air, 13 interceptions, 4 fumbles, 44 carries, 190 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. Now, you can argue the yards, you can argue the completions, this and that, but what sticks out to me, Chad, are the interceptions. And as I wrote here, he only had 3 his last season at Oregon. He didn't have any this preseason, and he never had more than 7 in any collegiate season at Auburn or Oregon. I don't know where ESPN was going with this, but I think it's pretty off track.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a visual representation for everybody. And I think it's, hey, it's a fair hedge, so to speak. But I don't know, maybe, dang it, this video player on our site is driving me nuts. It's a fair representation, I guess, for a floor. But I think people are sleeping still, the national media. I mean, this dude in how many? 7 total possessions. 6 of them were scoring drives. The only one that didn't get points, Zach, was, and I get it, preseason, backups, all that. But all we can do is kind of analyze and project based on what we've seen. And the only one that didn't get points was a completion to Lucas Kroll that he was immediately hit and fumbled. That's the only one. and you got something like 30 points if memory serves, 30 points on 6 possessions, and they're projecting 17 passing scores and just 2 rushing tutties. I can promise you, here's a bold prediction. It's going to be his passing scores will be north of 20. It'll be north of 20 with Sean Payton. And this, look, they're trying to be, or at least portray that they're going run first as an offense, protect the rookie quarterback, all that good stuff. But I'll believe that when I see it.
I think the rushing yards are below what he's going to ultimately put on the board for the Broncos as well. I mean, he was an excellent dual threat athlete coming out of high school. He was a good dual threat quarterback in college. I think we'll have more than 2 rushing touchdowns. But again, if Russell Wilson can throw for 26 and 8 last season with Sean Payton, why can't Bo Nix approach those numbers? I think ESPN was short selling him majorly here.
But yeah, 17 games. I think it's going to be somewhere between, honestly, like 38 and probably 4,200 passing yards. I think he'll be somewhere close, if not, I don't want to get too far out over my skis, but I think he'll be somewhere close from a passing score perspective to what Russell finished with last year, which was 26, which, by the way, Russ, the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh, Zach, then we'll grab Lawrence.
Can't wait for I'm literally counting down the days. I have it circled on my calendar. I can only imagine how Sean Payton feels, and some of the guys in that locker room. Cannot wait, Chad, for September 15th and the meet and greet.
Hopefully he doesn't do anything to get him off being the starter in one game, right? It's only one game in between the season starting and facing the Broncos. But Lawrence, what up, bro? Thank you for the super chat. One of our superstars, longtime superstars, saying, don't even get me started on Tim Patrick. I'm so mad about it. Yeah, I mean, let me ask you this. Would you rather have, and this might be an unfair portrayal of the issue, but Zach, would you rather have a veteran Tim Patrick or undrafted rookie offensive tackle Frank Crum on your 53?
It's an easy call.
Right? So there are some head scratchers, but by and large, I think it's a solid young roster. And I say that with a little bit of an asterisk because, Devon Vele is 27, Bo Nix is 24. But Lawrence, love you, big dog. Thank you very much for the super. Always great to see you. We also have here checking in. It's been a minute since we've seen Chef Ivo. What's up, bro? Great to see you.
Thank you, Chef.
Very generous super chat, big dog. Says, good evening, fellas. I think we'll win at least 8 or 9 with Bo running Sean's offense. Go Broncos, MHH for life. Yeah, I think 8. I think that's a fair thing, 8 or 9. Maybe if we're really hedging, we're going 7 wins is like the floor. The over-under, is it still 5.5? Is the over-under on the Broncos win total as far as the odds makers are concerned? But I'm looking forward to it, guys. And we're, like I said, 10 days, right? Broncos released a nice little graphic today with Bo Nix on it. 10 days till the kickoff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the floor could be 6 or 7. And if Bo Nix hits and some of the other rookies hit, there's no reason they can't win double digits. I just want to add one more thing about Tim Patrick to anyone feeling down about him still. At least be happy for his sake that he went to a contender, a Super Bowl contender, and he'll finally have a chance to compete, at least in a playoff game. He landed in a good offense with a good coach, a former Sean Payton pupil, and Dan Campbell. So I do wish Tim Patrick well.
We also have, it's been a minute since we've seen our super chat superstar buddy here. Jeff, what's up, bro? How have you been? Where have you been? No, I'm just kidding. We're glad to have you back at the campfire, big dog. Thank you for the super chat. He says, I'm cautiously optimistic, gents. Remember when Drew Lock won his first few games and we thought we arrived? Let's see how he fares, Bo, in real games. Yeah, just, for the sake of posterity, let's say, Drew Lock 4-1 as a rookie starter. He did start that season injured. I don't remember what it was. It was pre that crazy shoulder injury the second year, but he started injured. They could have brought him back like 4 games prior, but they chose not to. Brandon Allen, after they benched Joe Flacco, like basically when they benched Joe Flacco, they had the opportunity to go straight to Drew Lock, but Vic Fangio, obviously never a big believer, chose to slow roll that. By the time Drew got in, 4-1. But his point is that, hey, we were stoked on that, Zach, and we were. You and I were 2 of the probably bigger proponents of the Drew Lock hype, excitement, etc. And boy, did that come crashing down when he suffered that shoulder injury week 2 against the Steelers the next year.
Jeff, your overall point, holds true, but it's not apples to apples when you compare the catalyst here, which is the quarterback. Drew Lock and Bo Nix are nothing alike. And Chad's right. I was and still am a Drew Lock fan. I hope he does well in New York. But the mental processing, how they handle the speed of the game, their leadership, how pro-ready they are, there is no comparison. So I don't think we have to worry so much about the rookie curve like we did with Drew Lock. He was handled by an incompetent coach, by the way, in Vic Fangio. He was inserted later in the season. It's just not an accurate comparison. And we have to just hope that tough test in week 1, Chad, in Seattle, at Seattle, we have to hope that iron sharpens iron and it makes him better going into that week 2 game against Pittsburgh.
You hit on something, especially in my opinion, poignant, that separates these two situations, Zach, at the end there. And that is, in the case of Bo Nix, he is faring with, he's going to fare with much better, let's call it organizational alignment than Drew Lock did, right? Like we only learned this kind of through the lens of history. At the time, we didn't necessarily know that Vic Fangio was not the biggest fan of Drew Lock. We've learned in the fullness of time that that was very much a John Elway pick, and you could kind of say that Lock was foisted upon Vic Fangio. Fangio was assured by Elway that they were going to get themselves a veteran, and they did. Joe Flacco. It just so happened that Flacco was an utter swing and a miss. He was tapped for the most part. In this case, you've got, yes, a highly drafted quarterback, Bo Nix, a first rounder compared to Lock being a second. And he's not only landing in a more fortuitous position, I would argue, Zach, relative to just the roster overall, but the coach, the GM, not only and ownership, not only are they all aligned on the pick, but he's landing in a situation philosophy-wise, scheme-wise, where it's like, hey, man, hit the ground running. Would you rather be Drew Lock landing with Pat Shurmur? Who was it the first year? No, Skangs, right? The first year, which that was solid. Then they pulled the rug out from under Drew Lock and fired, did Vic Fangio, Rich Scangarello, who was the reason you got what you got out of Drew as a rookie. Oh, Pat Shurmur, former head coach, 2-time former head coach, comes available. Let's fire Skangs, bring in Shurmur. That was one of the big categorical errors that Vic Fangio made as a head coach, and it was a harbinger of how his tenure would shake out. But those are the two big differences. Organizational alignment, very much favoring Bo Nix as he begins his pro career.
There's only 2 similarities here. They were both rookie quarterbacks, and they both spent their rookie year with the Broncos playing quarterback. Otherwise, it's apples and bananas. I just, have someone like Bo Nix who's so pro-ready, who's the antithesis mentally and between the ears of Drew Lock. I think there's a reason for optimism. I get the PTSD, but I think there's a reason that this is finally it for Denver.
Yeah, as Mr. Producer says, a bigger difference is Sean Payton and Vic Fangio, which, by the way, Fangio is kind of a Sean Payton guy. Like, he wanted him, perhaps he kicked the tires before VJ on trying to get Vic to come be his defensive coordinator here, but that wasn't meant to be for whatever it's worth. But yeah, interesting topic there, Jeff. Thank you again, buddy, for the super chat. Really, really good to see you. Zach, I want to here, let me swap these pages here. Make sure this is, yep. Pause the video, man. Hold on. Sorry, I got to pause this because it wants to. Ryan, what's up, dude? Ryan Jones on Facebook throwing down a little bit. Thank you, buddy. Zach, if this video tries to play on me, I'm going to go like thermonuclear. Just go away, video. Love you, but go away. All right, Zach, just real quick for those who maybe haven't read the blogs, read the articles. I know we're late here. It's Thursday. Final roster, that was all Tuesday. But here's your Broncos roster. Quarterback, Bo Nix, Jarrett Stidham, Zach Wilson. Running back, this was where things took a slight turn where they didn't keep, well, they kept 4 as expected, but one of them was not the fullback. They kept Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime, and Zach, the undrafted rookie, Blake Watson. Do you feel like Watson did enough to really earn that? Or was it a result of they basically had him guaranteed at $250,000 and they want to get their money's worth?
It could have been the money. It could have been the fact that Sean Payton just took a liking to Blake Watson. It's one of his guys, like we talked about, because he didn't inherit him like he did Tyler Beatty. I think Beatty had the better preseason, but Watson is just one of Payton's guys. So you flip a coin. We went over it on Monday's podcast, Chad, of like, the rapid fire, and both of us kind of picked different guys there.
Watson, to me, is a slightly more physical, powerful Jaleel McLaughlin. So I am excited to see what he can do as time marches on. Wide receiver, again, another kind of fork in the road here. They kept Cortland Sutton, Josh Reynolds, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, Devon Vele, and the big names that were 86th at the time, Lil Jordan Humphrey, Tim Patrick, obviously, Brandon Johnson, Jalen Virgil. Lil Jordan Humphrey, though, Zach re-signed to the practice squad. And David Sills and Michael Bandy.
Yeah, they were fortunate, and I think either George Payton or Sean Payton talked about that. They were fortunate to get most of the players they released, especially at receiver, back on the practice squad. Again, I would have kept one of TP or Brandon Johnson on the 53, but that's why I'm not running the Broncos.
Tight end, 4, as kind of expected. I wasn't sure about Adkins, but they erred on the side of Adkins in terms of kind of that him, so to speak, over Burton. But Adam Troutman, Greg Dulcich, Lucas Kroll, Nate Adkins, you move to the O-line, and this is where I did have a little bit of a head scratcher. First of all, I was stoked, Zach, to see Forsythe stick and make it. He didn't have the greatest summer, so as a former 7th-round pick, I know Sean Payton had said some good things about him throughout the last couple of years, but his outlook was a little sketch. But Frank Crum. So here's 9 offensive linemen kept: Garrett Bowles, Ben Powers, Luke Wattenberg, Quinn Miners, Mike McGlinchey, Matt Pert, the newcomer through free agency, Alex Palczewski, Alpal, Forsythe, Frank Crum. What are your thoughts on this group?
Can we go back up to tight end for a second? I just
Sure.
want to make 2 quick points. I don't understand why Adam Troutman is still leading the depth chart, Chad. I think they can upgrade on. I'm just so tired of seeing him there. And number 2, it's worth mentioning the Broncos did sign Donald Parham, the former Chargers tight end, to their practice squad. Huge, monstrous, towering guy, 6'8", 238, I think 236, something like that. He can be a big red zone weapon. He literally stands out above the rest. I think he'll be promoted to the 53. About offensive line, go back down if we could. I think the only surprise here, Chad, is Frank Crum. And we talked about him. I think he was atrocious in the preseason, but both George Payton and Sean Payton talked about his intangibles, his bend, his athleticism. He's, again, one of Sean Payton's guys that he took a liking to, and they want to just give him a year to develop. I would have just preferred giving him that year on the practice squad, not the 53.
It's like they were really paranoid they were going to lose him. I don't think they were going to lose him, but maybe there was more. They obviously know a lot more about how much they may have had to have competed for his services as a college free agent than is known. So I don't know. But defensive line, they kept 6: Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers, DJ Jones, Malcolm Roach. Interesting here. Jordan Jackson earned himself a spot. Really cool to see, former Air Force guy. And Uwazurike made it. Zach, 11th hour re-addition to the roster after he was granted reinstatement from his suspension. Active for 1 preseason game, a little bit lackluster, but I don't blame him after having a year off. He did stay in shape, but there's a difference, Zach, between gym shape and football shape, and we saw that play out in real time in preseason game 3. But real quick, your thoughts on how the D-line shook out?
George Payton talked about Uwazurike coming back in and not really looking much different, and in a good way. He's kept up with his conditioning, and he talked about, he's a really good kid who made a mistake. So I'm excited to see what he can do. I'm really happy for Jordan Jackson, who was flying around in the preseason, Chad. He was everywhere in the finale against the Cardinals. But I'll say this about the D-line as a whole. Obviously, I'm excited about Bo Nix and the Broncos quarterback this season. If there's a position I'm second most excited for, it's the defensive line. It is 1,000% upgraded and different from what we saw last year and in recent years, and they are going to be beasts up front. I cannot wait to watch them.
Inside linebacker, this has since changed. Alex Singleton, Cody Barton, Justin Sternad, and Levelle Bailey made the initial 53 out of camp. Bailey's going to end up likely back on the practice squad, and he's been replaced by, what's his name, Christian
Welch.
I've already forgotten his name. But you said goodbye here to Jonas Griffith. What were your thoughts on that?
I don't know what photographs that Sternad has on the Broncos coaching staff to last as long as he has, Chad, through different regimes, and doesn't really offer anything on defense. He's like Troutman to me. I would have moved on from him. I would have kept Levelle Bailey over Sternad, but it's all about special teams. And you have your 2 starters in Singleton and Barton. That report did come out, though, from Mike Kliss that if there was one position they were looking at upgrading on the waiver wire, it was inside linebacker. So they might not be done before the season tinkering there.
Keep an eye on it. On the edge, you have Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito, Jonah Ellis. No surprises here, really, Zach. I'm just going to jump to cornerback where they kept Surtain, of course, Jaquan McMillian, Riley Moss, Levi Wallace, Chris Abrams-Drain, the rookie fifth-round pick, and what do you know? Tremont Smith still finding a way to stick around thanks to his special teams, which, by the way, it's not nothing. You think, well, he's not that good of a returner. He's a better gunner. So, like, he does bring value to the table. Is a value worthy of a roster spot? Broncos say yes, Zach.
I guess he knew Sean Payton from New Orleans, so it's another hashtag Sean Payton guy.
And then at safety, this is interesting. PJ Locke, Brandon Jones, Devin Key, JL Skinner did make it, a 2023 sixth rounder. And really good story here. Keydron Smith making it after a really strong preseason where he had his fingerprint, so to speak, on 3 Bronco takeaways.
Not listed here is Delarian Turner-Yell, who was placed on PUP to open the season. He'll be out the first 4 weeks. He's coming off an ACL, though, Chad, so it might be longer than that.
Could be. Hey, we got here George Fox jumping in. What's up, brother? Great to see you. He says, hey, guys, this time next week, we have the first game of the season. Football is back. Thanks for the way your team has kept football going all offseason. Hit the thumbs up, Broncos for life. Yes, indeed. And thank you, brother. We really do appreciate that. And it's a good reminder, too, as we mind our P's and Q's. Guys, make sure you're following the podcast on X, on Twitter, all right, at the MHH Pod. Whoops, there we go. Make sure also the main account at Mile High Huddle. Right now, open up your phones while you've got YouTube rolling or Facebook, or if you're on Twitter, you're following, but make sure you're following at Mile High Huddle. And then also, guys, we're really working hard to build up our Instagram at Mile_High_Huddle. And look, you can find myself at Chad and Jensen, Zach at Kelberman NFL. So we got to mind our P's and Q's and start reminding people of this before the end of the episode, where people start kind of, all right, they maybe start not tuning out, but you know how it is. I'm a huge podcast consumer. So I know how it goes, guys, but just a quick reminder there. And then, I'm curious, Ronk, what your thoughts are on the fact that the Broncos said goodbye to Bailey. Short term, he'll probably be back. Do you expect him to get claimed, Zach?
He might. I don't think he ultimately will, but there's always the chance. And then if you expose him to the practice squad, there's always the chance that a team digs up his film from the preseason and says, hey, let's take a shot on this guy.
By the way, guys, tonight we do have to keep it a little bit short, a little bit brief, a little bit sharp. So any burning topics, questions, get them in the chat now. Supers especially, because we will make sure we get all those before we dip. Like Taylor here, Christensen jumping in.
Thank you,
one of our bona fide regular Super Chat superstars. Love you, big dog. He says, I don't understand the move, but Bailey needs assigned to the practice squad. I thought Tillman did enough to make the 53, but I'm glad he's on the practice squad. A very young roster. Yes, indeed, Zach. We can I can pull up the practice squad thing, but your thoughts here for Taylor?
Yeah, I agree on both counts here. There's just no room on the 53 for Tillman. You can't get rid of Ellis or Bonito or anyone. It's a numbers game, and fortunately, like you said, they're back. They're fortunate to get him back on the practice squad. He has something. If there's any one of the second, third, fourth stringers that stood out to me in the preseason, I think Tillman could be someone that develops into at least a DPR, designated pass rusher.
So here's your full list of the practice squad, and it's soon to probably include Bailey unless he does get claimed off waivers. But Tyler Beatty re-signed, the running back, Michael Bandy, Michael Burton, Nick Gargiulo. I still butcher his last name. Gargiulo. I don't know. The 7th round rookie. Glad he stuck around, Zach. And look, I wouldn't get too upset about him not making the roster, because Matt Paradis in 2014 was a 6th round pick, did not make the cut, spent his entire rookie year on the practice squad, came back, learned got stronger, learned some things, came back that next summer and won the starting center job out of training camp and never looked back. Led the Broncos that year on the offensive line to Super Bowl 50 and all that stuff. So who knows? Maybe Nick can turn the ship around. Matt Henningsen, also former Broncos late round pick, glad he stuck around. Little Jordan Humphrey, Tanner McAllister, one of the newer names that is finding a way to stick around and impress the Broncos. Jordan Miller, nose tackle. Quentin Newsom, similar to McAllister and secondary guys. Here's the new tight end that Zach was talking about that the Broncos signed to the practice squad yesterday. Dylan Parham, monster. He's a beast. Former Chargers third-round pick, so some untapped potential there. Will Sherman, the offensive guard. David Sills, 5, receiver. Reese Taylor, corner. Calvin Throckmorton, offensive guard. Dondrea Tillman, that's the rush linebacker that came from the XFL. And then, of course, we mentioned him earlier, Thomas Yasmin, tight end with the international designation, which allows the Broncos to actually have 17 dudes, Zach, on the practice squad.
Yeah, a couple names there. David Sills, I think, could be something maybe as a slot guy. The Broncos coaches seem to like him. And also Reese Taylor, the cornerback. There's a lot of younger players. It's kind of in flux. VJ says they'll use multiple cornerbacks. If they have an injury, God forbid, I think Reese Taylor could step up and provide some good depth.
Zach, it's kind of cool, but it's worth mentioning. Not that it really means all that much, but it's worth mentioning that 2 Denver Broncos were named to Pro Football Focus's preseason all-rookie team. To wit, those 2 rookies are, of course, Bo Nix and Jonah Ellis. However, also on top of that, Bo Nix, trying to find it here, the Bo Nix thing, he was also named by, I think it was Bleacher Report, the best rookie of the preseason. Your thoughts?
Well, then you have like, what was it, the 33rd team saying they're not overly impressed by Bo Nix. So
yes.
we'll talk about the positive and not rail on the negative for once. Listing Jonah Ellis and Bo Nix as the best rookies, it gives me Texans vibes. And I have to preface everything I say by saying I'm not making that comparison. But last season, they hit on Will Anderson. They hit on CJ Stroud.
True.
Maybe if the Broncos did the same, Chad, that would go a long way to maybe cracking double-digit wins in 2024.
I've been dying to get Scott's opinion on this, but Nick had an article for us yesterday. Hopefully you guys have read it. Broncos urged to trade for Falcons safety Richie Grant, who was a former kind of higher round pick of the Falcons, but didn't ever really live up to expectations. But he was a starter. Falcons were looking to upgrade. They did by signing Justin Simmons. And Zach, Alex K also, turns out, of Bleacher Report, urging the Broncos to pursue that trade. Falcons former starter. Your thoughts, but also, Scott, thumbs up or down on Richie Grant? Oh, he's going to drop some knowledge. But your thoughts on that, Zach?
I like Grant coming out of college. I don't know that I would give up a pick. You have younger players there already. I mean, Keydron Smith just made the 53 off of effort and play alone. I'd rather see what he can do. Brandon Jones, when he comes back, PJ Locke, who looked good last season as a starter. So I'm not of the mind to make a trade there. In terms of the 33rd team, more, I'm collecting receipts on Twitter and they happen to go in my receipt pile as well. That's their opinion. They're not overly impressed. I feel like Chad Bo Nix could have thrown for 10,000 yards and 100 touchdowns and they still wouldn't have been overly impressed. It is what it is. Let them hate.
Scott, in this, what you just posted, that's what is also included in the prospective trade by Bleacher Report? Okay, because I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. When the Falcons and Broncos traded, Broncos got Javonte. Oh, I see. Back when they moved up to get Javonte. Yeah. So Scott, when the Broncos traded up to get Javonte Williams, the Falcons got Richie Grant and starting center Drew Dalman with the 4th round pick, Zach, that they got. So anyway, interesting. But I agree with you based on what we know about Richie Grant. I mean, it's nice he's got some experience. And that's one thing about that Broncos safety room that is a little bit concerning. I'm not overly concerned. I'm not losing sleep over it, but is relative experience. I mean, even their big shining, here's our free agent skin to hang on the wall, Brandon Jones, not that experienced relative to actually being a starter. When PJ Locke, and I love PJ Locke, I think PJ Locke is just now scratching the surface, but still, when he's kind of the guy to hang your hat on, there's reasons why people are going, man, hope that turns out. But some of these younger guys, it's like, this is part of why it's a youth movement. You go youth because basically you have to. In a rebuild, you shed a bunch of salary. You end up having, in many cases, Zach, eat a lot of dead money. And so you don't have much choice but to go young. And in order for a rebuilding team early in the rebuild to actually have success on the field, those young guys who they have invested in, whether it's through the draft or even free agency, they got to step up and answer the bell. So we'll see if the safety group ends up being able to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, how do you get experience? By just playing games and just getting experience the old fashioned way, seeing what they can do, good or bad. And the Broncos had experienced safety play last season with Simmons and Kareem Jackson. How did that avail them? Not very well, Chad. While Kareem Jackson wasn't suspended, of course, I should say.
How surprised were you, Zach, that the Broncos kept Zach Wilson? So 3 quarterbacks on the 53.
I mean, Sean Payton said that they're all going to make it. I still think they should have kept 2, but it's Sean. In Sean, we trust.
George Payton, I thought this was interesting. Quote, this was day of the final cut, so this was on Tuesday afternoon on Zach Wilson. Quote, he has starter tools all over. It's been pretty cool just watching him with really no expectations. He can just go out there and play football. He has all the traits. He has all the starting traits in the world. He's still working through some things. You can see the good and the really good last week in the game. He can throw it as good as anyone in the league. I mentioned before, he's smart. He's a great kid. Repeats himself, has starter traits all over. I do think he will be, Zach, a starter in this league. So something of a bold prediction from the Broncos GM on Zach Wilson.
A lot of manufactured lip service there. Not that it's not deserved, but like Scott says in the private chat, I think they're trying to pump up his trade value. If they could get a higher round pick for him than Jarrett Stidham, obviously you deal him away. But I do like the work that Zach Wilson's put in, Chad, and we talked about it on Monday's show. I think Wilson did enough to be QB2.
I think we've hit on most of the news we needed to get to tonight, guys. So this is kind of your 2-minute warning on key questions, superstars. The Ronk, thank you, bro. Love you so often, punctuating each and every episode with positive words, some stars, some support, and most importantly, honestly, and I mean it when I say this, most importantly, contributing to the conversation in the live chat each and every episode. So important, and that goes to everybody. I mean, whether you're throwing down stars or not, or super chats or not, you're in the chat, you're engaged with us, and you're contributing to this conversation. And to us, that is, Zach, the most important thing.
Absolutely. And someone else that's important to us is Sam Bam, $10 super at the buzzer. Thank you so much, Sam. He asked, do you think the Broncos should have kept another O-lineman for depth purposes? 9 seems a little thin for a position that's so injury prone and important. We have to check how many they kept last season under Sean Payton, Chad, but I don't think it's too little. You have the practice squad. There's 3 or 4 guys on there that you can call up at any time, and they might be keeping their eye open for a player that hits the waiver wire, or a player that's available, could scoop them up, a la Evan Mathis. You always talk about that fun, Chad, and the Broncos do have some money put away where they could get an O-lineman if they need it.
So they kept, let's see, they kept 4, 8. They kept 8. I was going to say 9 is usually pretty heavy, but they kept 8 out of camp last year. 4 tackles: Bowles, McGlinchey, Fleming, Palczewski, who was then put on IR, and so then they re-signed after waiving him, Quinn Bailey. So that was your offensive tackles. Interior was just Ben Powers, Cush, Miners, Forsythe out of camp. I think they went a little heavy just to hedge a little bit, for what it's worth. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would argue against that. It's an injury. I mean, generally speaking, maybe O-line is an injury prone position. I mean, their point of attack, every single play, there's a collision. If you're a wide receiver or if you're a running back, it's not every single play there's a collision, but if you're an offensive lineman, every single play. So there is that attrition. I get what you're saying there, but Garrett Bowles, with the exception of 1 year, has been a healthy guy. McGlinchey, maybe a little bit more on the, but not like losing him for a season, like just, but still 16 out of 17 games he started last year. Miners is reliable. Powers, same as the day is long. We'll see about Wattenberg. I'm not too worried about it, I guess is what I'm saying, Sam Bam. As far as injury concerns, I think they got enough guys there to kind of handle whatever may arise, hopefully. Obviously, Zach, tackle would be the biggest thing that we would kind of be holding our breath if something were to happen to either McGlinchey or Bowles. But we've got the Lady D jumping in at the 11th hour from the top rope, showing us such generous love. Thank you, Deanna. You know we love you. Are we going to see you in 2 weeks? Are you going to be able to make it? I don't know if we've ever gotten a definitive answer. Maybe we haven't. I'm just not remembering. But one of these days, Lady D. We want to be able to meet you face to face, look you in the eye, and not only hang out with you, but thank you for all that you do here. She says, evening, Zach, Chad, and Scott. So far, I'm okay with the moves. Just looking forward to a win at Seattle. I hope Wilson is the QB2 MHH for life. I mean, could you imagine the indignity Jarrett Stidham would have to face in the mirror every day? Not only did he not win starter, but now he's Q3.
Yeah, and he would still feel so, screwed over. I almost cursed there, Chad. He would still feel like he deserves something more. I do think, Deanna, I agree with you. I think Wilson should be QB2, and I am also looking forward to, I need this win against the Seahawks. Like, I need air to breathe, Chad. So freaking bad.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Lady D, so good to see you tonight.
Thank you, Deanna.
And thank you. Seriously, thank you very much. What an awesome way to help us kind of close out tonight's episode, as you so often do. You're the bomb.com. You know this. Leroy's saying, I think the Broncos should go for another veteran safety to be on the safe side. Fun little wordplay there. Adrian Amos, Zach, he's out there. There was a time when the Broncos were linked to him in the free agent rumor mill back when he was kind of prime Adrian Amos. But
Exactly.
Your thoughts for Leroy?
You nailed it there. He's past his prime now. That was like, 2017, 2018, 2019, around that time, Chad. It was a fair bit ago.
Yeah, well, something's telling me it was either right before Vic came or first year he came.
So, I mean, that's half a decade ago. I don't think they need an Adrian Amos. And again, I'm more of a guy, like always. I would rather see the younger players get the opportunities and let them get the shine.
Phil saying, let's make sure our all-time 35-20 record against the Seahawks is stretched to 36-20 against the Seahawks. Go Broncos. Indeed, brother. We get what you're trying to say, big dog. And yes, it's been a minute, Zach, since the Broncos have won in Seattle. So now's the time. It's traditionally, especially, from the Pete Carroll era on, been a real tough place to win. I know Pete's not there anymore, but you get what I'm trying to say. The Broncos haven't had a lot of luck playing there. Maybe this is the year, Zach.
Yeah, Russell Wilson's gone. Pete Carroll's gone. I do like their coach, Mike McDonald. That defense is going to be feisty. I'm not a believer in Geno Smith. So if the Broncos come to play, they can come out of that game with a dub. And I pray they do.
Even the Ronks saying, hey, thanks, Lady Deanna Hendry, for the $50 super chat for the MHH pod. Love that, dude. Thank you. Taking ownership. I love that. And yeah, Randy, this is something that is a Sean Payton philosophy, as gleaned learning at the feet of Bill Parcells. You build a team around the offensive line. And I still think, Zach, people are sleeping on the quality, at least of the starting five. Like Wattenberg, jury's out. We'll see. But overall, this is a better offensive line than I think people give credit for. And now that you actually have a competent quarterback who's not trying to turn every single play into a backyard scramble, I think fans will start to see it a little more clearly on the subject. Like even my dad, I've mentioned this before, shout out the Pops, Mark Jensen, but he's like, man, if they can protect him, man, Bo Nix, I don't know. It's like, well, that's the perception of the O-line in the fan base by and large, Zach, for better or for worse, that's the perception. And I think that will change thanks to Bo Nix.
It's amazing what happens when you don't have a quarterback literally spinning and strafing into sacks. That's, Bo Nix's strength is not doing that. So it's going to help out the O-line up front.
All right. Couple messages for you guys before we dip on out of here. So don't leave quite yet.
Tremendous episode, almost 45 minutes already. God, you guys are amazing. Of the Mile High Huddle podcast. If you're not doing so, please follow us on Twitter at the MHH pod. You can also follow the main account at Mile High Huddle. Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott, our producer, at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some merch like we're always rocking on each and every podcast, check out mhhmerch.com and get you some. If you haven't done so yet, please drop us a like at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. You can find us on Instagram at mile_high_huddle. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some merch each and every single month. But if anything, y'all, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
Amen to that. Hey, we did get this one for Taylor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I was off screen for a second reading stuff, so I wasn't
All
sure.
good.
But there's one last thing I want to read. I think this is a great way to close out the show. A good message. If the stream would quit jumping on me, just when I find it, I lose it. Hold on. Now I got to go back and find it. I should have started. This is what I get. Almost there. Almost there. Yes, and the Ronk saying, ladies of Mile High Huddle podcast, billing the Broncos, Mile High Insiders, Broncos for breakfast, Dove Valley Deep Divers, and Orange and Blue View. That's right. The ladies of the MHH community still lead the way, and what a great example they are. We love them. Leroy, thank you for being here with us, bro. You've been with us a long time, dating back, if memory serves, Zach, to the Zack Kelberman 24/7 Sports Facebook
Great.
days.
True OG.
True OG. He says the fans have to stop being scared and stop comparing Drew Lock to Bo Nix, or maybe the other way around, Bo Nix to Drew Lock. Drew is considered a veteran and still can't read defenses and is still making boneheaded rookie mistakes. I don't feel this way with Bo Nix. Indeed, and that's something too. Thank you, my friend. That's something too that George Payton, that is, spoke to Tuesday. Was like, hey, we're really excited about Bo Nix. We think he's ready. Not to say that as a rookie he won't have his trial and error learning curve. There will be some bumps in the road, but dude, the Broncos, they don't have any doubts about Bo Nix. They're ready to rock.
Yeah, I can't remember who made the comparison or who asked that question, but to me, it's not comparable at all. Bo Nix is miles ahead as a rookie quarterback than Drew Lock was. There's no contest.
A mile high salute and a special shout out to the great Super Chat superstars and supporters helping us keep the lights on tonight, like Sam Bam throwing down early, the Papa Bear, love you, Eric Flynn, what's good, Phil McLaughlin down in Tucson, the Ronk, Lawrence Rivera, Chef Ivo back in the house, love to see it. Jeff C back in the house, love to see it. Welcome back, bro. Ryan Jones shouts on Facebook. George Fox shouts. Taylor Christensen. Let's see. And of course, last but most certainly not least, the Lady D. Much love. And guys, enjoy your Labor Day weekend. And hopefully, you're getting that Monday off to kind of recharge and gear up, because Zach, I won't be around Sunday. I'll be around Monday night. So I'll be able to say the next time I'm able to talk with everybody, it'll actually be a game week. Whoa, we're almost already there. That's a weird way of saying it, but we're almost already there. But have a great weekend, everybody. And you too, Zach. You too, Scott. Can't wait.
Have a great weekend is right. I will see you Sunday. Chad and I will see you Monday. We'll have a great weekend. We'll see you then. Take care. And as always, go Broncos.